Hello and welcome to another episode. Today I'm going to talk with you about something a little bit different, and that is the art of quiet. This is something that I've slowly been practicing over the last, I guess, 6 months. And it's not a place where I figured I would find myself. I'm typically the sort of person that if I have a goal, you know all about it. If I'm creating something massive, you know every move. And I've really sat and thought with why this is. Why did I for so many years feel so compelled to show up and share a lot of that stuff online? And it comes back to years ago, right? It comes back to my role as a head instructor at a taekwondo school. And before that, as the lead student at a taekwondo school. And then as the highest ranked instructor. And just years and years and years of being out the front and leading. And even when I wasn't meaning to, I've been a source of inspiration for people. And I guess I've felt some sort of responsibility to share the behind the scenes and share as much as I can because I know it inspires people. And I know that because people tell me that. I hear that all the time. And I don't go around walking around the world, the earth, telling myself that, I'm such an inspiration to people. I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm just out there living my life. But I do know that I am a little bit unique in many ways, right? I don't really care what other people think. I don't have an aversion to risk, healthy risk. I just go for it, right? And I do that in a pretty unfiltered way. And it's been part of my life forever and ever. Even with the taekwondo stuff, I remember I was asked to be, I was head trainer for the black belt women's state squad. And I went ahead and stepped up and did that role, even though there were so many people on that team that had more runs on the board than I ever had and would go on to have. But I was very good at what I did. I was very good at creating sport specific drills for people to build their reaction speed and things like that. And I was very good at teaching it and articulating it. I've just been out front for as long as I can remember. And as I say, I always, even going back to when I was grading, I think for my fourth Dan and training at another club under another instructor so that I could gain that belt. And the classes that I was training in, it was like I was what's it was like honey to a bee, bees to honey, because I am out there and I was training so hard and I was so disciplined, all the usual things that I just am being me. And people could see just how hard I was pushing myself in classes and they knew how hard I was training outside of classes. And that created another leadership position that I didn't really ask for, but it's been there, right? Even when I go back to when my kids were in playgroup and I used to run stairs to get fit for fights. And I would just go out there a few mornings a week, run these insane stairs, and that I just love doing it. And I remember talking about it at playgroup one day, and next thing you know, I've got 6 or 8 of the mums coming with me to run stairs. It's just been natural for me to lead and have people follow along. That's just who I am. It's been part of my life. And so, of course, when the online world started to become a thing, and we're talking about 25 years ago, 20 odd years ago now, it just made sense. I just naturally would show up and share what I was doing. And, it's interesting when you see those memories come up, right? And some of the memories on Facebook for me are my old tweets. Like I used to love Twitter back in the day. Like back in the day, I was on there a lot. And interesting how I fucking hate short form content now, but I was all over Twitter. So interesting. I must delve into that at some point. Anyway, um, so it just made sense for me to continue down that path, right? Sharing everything. And I never really questioned it. I never really questioned that I was doing it. Although in the later years, I would have more than once, there were many times I would have this thought in my head where it's like, oh, I really should do a live stream. And part of me was like, no one's asking you to get on the internet and start crapping on. Like nobody's asking you to do that. And so I just felt like it was kind of ridiculous. And I fought it for a while. I continued to struggle with it for a while. And a seed was planted last year in my mastermind. It's now my inner circle, but back then I was running my mastermind, and there was one coach that I had in my mastermind, and we'd built this beautiful, really elegant client acquisition system for my client. It didn't require her showing up on social media. And anyway, we were talking about word of the year. And I think as we'll get it, we were starting to think about 2026. We're going back to like, I don't know, August, September, something like that. I don't even know why we were talking about that. Maybe it was just setting a theme for the month or something like that. And I remember her saying her chosen word was privacy. And something called to me the moment she said it. It was just like, oh, that's really calling to me. But I still wasn't there yet, right? Because I still was not questioning. I knew I wanted to use social media less as a way to grow my business. The podcast was already doing its thing, all of that was happening. But I still felt this compulsion to get online and share things because in my mind, it's like, well, I'm a leader. I have a leadership role in this place, and I need to go and keep doing that. It wasn't even feeling like I need to keep doing this. It was more just I did it, right? It was just habit, part of who I was. And then I started to really sit with that, and I started to think about, but why are you showing up online if you don't need to? If there's no need anymore from a business perspective, why is it that you feel the need to do this? And straight away I knew it's like it was for others. And then I had to ask myself, well, what about me? What do I need? And I kept flashing back to that moment where she said her word was privacy. And I thought, oh, I'm ready for that. I'm ready for privacy. I'm ready for that. And so that has kind of led me on this path. Ironically, this morning I did just create a post where I was sharing about what I'm doing with my life now that I'm not online 24/7. And it felt really good to write about that. It's not for my business, it just felt good to share it. So I'm sure there's always going to be a part of me that feels called to do that for me, though, not for anybody else. And I recently, I deleted my Substack because it's like I'm not writing for business anymore. So what do I even want to use this for? And then I've recently come across this desire to get my peak fitness back. It's a balancing act, obviously, with my CLL, not overdoing it. And so I started to map out a plan where I'm working at intensity, but not too often and not too long, and this big focus on recovery. Anyway, I was going on YouTube and looking everywhere. It's like, who is like me, somebody who's been an athlete their whole life? They're already fit, like they're already in pretty good shape, but now they're getting ready to dial it up, and not for any reason. Like, it's not to lose fat, it's not to do this, it's just for the joy of it. And so I had, years ago, I had a VO2 max test. It was like 49. I wasn't even super fit back then, but that's a pretty impressive score. And I want to get back to that score. So this is like this burning desire that I have. And I was looking for inspiration. I was looking for people who have been in, like, influencer culture has just ruined that entire industry for me. And now we've got the midlife freaking people that are, anyway, let's not even start on that because that's a whole other conversation. But it's like, where are the people that are just sharing their love of fitness? And when I say fitness, I'm not talking about building more muscle. I'm not talking about being a high rocks athlete. I'm not talking about any of those things. I'm talking about just honoring your athletic nature, right? Couldn't find it. So I went on Substack to see if anyone was writing about it, couldn't find it. And it's like, I'm going to start a Substack. And so I started it, and it's just me writing and documenting the process. I feel like there's just part of me that just, I'm always going to want to do those things. But what's different now between back then, back even 6, 8 months ago, is that I'm not willing to sacrifice my privacy and my quietness and the peace that I'm feeling right now to, inverted commas, inspire other people. I will do that as a byproduct of who I am, as I always have, but I don't owe anybody that. There is no responsibility on my shoulders to do that. I'm writing that Substack and sharing about that because I need an outlet. I want to talk about it, and I'm not finding people to talk about it with. And so it's like, well, I'll create a little community where I get to do that for funsies, right? For funsies, not from a business perspective. Anyway, you might be wondering, like, what has this got to do with the art of quiet, ambition, authority, leadership? What's that about? I look at my life now and the way that I go about my business and the way that I go about my life and the way I go about my ambition these days, and it feels very quiet. It feels very certain. It feels very grounded. And it also feels very quiet. I just don't have the desire to go out there and shout from the rooftops what I'm doing every minute of every day anymore. And it's made my life so much richer, calmer. I don't know. It's just better, right? And so if we talk about quiet ambition, what does that mean? What does that look like? And for me, it's been really about simplifying what I want, but also dialing up the what I want. Like, what do I really want? And what do I really like? What lights me up? What excites me? And anything that is under the level doesn't inspire me. So I've got to go big. And so that's what I've been doing. So I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. I know what I need to do to get there. And I'm just quietly going about those activities. And it feels lovely. I don't have to tell people what I'm doing. I don't have to share the journey. I don't have to, I don't know, I'm not feeling any responsibility anymore. And, there was a lot of argument for, what's the word? What are we talking about? If you share it, then there's accountability, right? I don't need that. I'm accountable to myself. No one's going to be a harder taskmaster than me. And I just want to move slow. I want to move quietly. And then I want to let the outcomes show up. And I don't feel like I need to necessarily announce those either. I just am relying very heavily on my systems and my team and knowing what we've built and trusting in that and letting it do its thing without me every minute of every day having to be obsessed with, I've got to make this happen. I'm chasing this goal. We're doing this thing. Like, I just don't feel that energy anymore. I just don't have that. I have the same level of ambition, probably higher actually, but I don't feel like anymore that I need to work myself into a frenzy to build momentum or get excitement. There's just such a grounded certainty and inevitability about everything that I'm doing right now. And that comes from being quiet and not announcing every fucking thing every minute of every day. And so the ambition is heightened. It's bigger than it's ever been. And my team knows what's happening. They know where we're going. They know what we're doing. And that's all that matters. My business was my whole personality for way too long. And before that, my fitness was my whole personality for way too long, and my involvement in martial arts and all of that stuff. And so it's just me evolving out of what is my whole personality. And right now, my personality is about my life, not just about my business. And so, yeah, it's a lot quieter. And when it comes to quiet authority, this comes down to, for me, the way that we're marketing my business and also the way that I show up. And quiet authority is it's quiet. You don't have to hack any algorithms. You don't have to jump through hoops. You don't have to be fancy and clever with your words. You don't have to try to hack things. You don't have to try to, I don't know. It's just there's so much hype and crap out there that I am not playing in that place, in that energy, in that vibe. I'm just not doing it. And so for me, my authority feels very calm. It feels very grounded. It feels very elevated. It feels very expanded. And again, it comes down to simplicity, right? I'm an authority in a certain thing. I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know the results that we create. I understand all of those things, and that's enough for me. I don't have to go and bang it and shout it from the rooftops to make people believe me or convince people that I know what I'm doing. For me, it's like the smart people who are playing at my level or want to be playing at my level, they understand. They don't need all the hype. In fact, the hype and the all the rest of it is just going to be something that puts people off. When I have something to say, I will say it, but I'm not saying shit just for the sake of feeding the algorithm. It's just not happening. And so quiet authority feels to me like it's very self-composed, it's very knowing, it's very grounded, it's very quiet, and it is what it is, right? And I get to choose when and how I exercise that authority. And it feels amazing. And the last one is quiet leadership. This is a big topic, and I don't know if I'm making this clear enough or not. But when I think about quiet leadership, it's the opposite of what I used to do, which is micromanaging and driving the bus the entire time. Now it's making sure that the vision is crystal clear. Everybody knows what the vision is. Everybody has buy-in around the vision. Everybody knows their roles and they're executing their roles, and I trust them to do that. And so I am not micromanaging, checking in, being overly hands-on with anything. I've built a team, a world-class team who know what they're doing. Each of them can do their own job better than I could by 1,000%. So why would I be in there micromanaging them and what they do and how, pardon me, and how they do it? There's just no need for that. And so my leadership is very vision focused, and I communicate with my COO and she mostly communicates with everybody else. I don't need to be in there managing everybody else. That's her role. And that's what she does beautifully. I know what I need to know. If changes need to be made, I make them. But my job is not to be in there micromanaging my team, because that is something that I have done in the past. And I always just say it's easier to do it myself. And I knew that that was getting in my way. And so quiet leadership is knowing my role and staying in my role. And it's not all those other things. And leadership is about leading by example, right? Leading by example and showing people the way, and without being noisy, without over managing, without any of those things. And I can't even tell you how calm it feels. The people that are working in my world, they feel it. They feel very calm. They feel very grounded. They know their roles. They know I trust them. If they've got questions, they know they can ask me anything that they need to ask me, but it's calm, it's grounded, it's quiet. And so it's too easy these days to be pulled into the hype train, to be pulled into the chaos that is social media. And like it or not, it's a big part of our lives, right? Less for me these days, but that's not going to be the case for everybody, right? Some people love social media and they're going to want to be growing their business via social media. And if that's you, I don't have any judgment around that. It just wasn't for me anymore. But I also want you to check in with yourself and ask yourself, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for other people? Am I doing it my way and really doing it my way and just trusting that my instincts are correct? Or am I being pulled every which way because I think I'm going to get a better result? That's reactive. We don't want to be reactive. Reactive is the opposite of quiet. Reactive is noisy. And so if you want this quiet kind of life, it doesn't mean that there's not exciting things that happen. It doesn't mean that it's all just like white and taups and beiges. It's spicy in parts, right? But my whole life doesn't need to be adrenaline fueled. And that is the opposite of what social media would tell you. So, anyway, that is what was on my heart today. Take it or leave it. I hope it was useful. And I will see you next week. Bye for now.